Hi, I'm Wendy Turner, Executive Director of Michigan Public. You might have heard that public media is under threat. You're not wrong. But I come to tell you that your voice has power. Visit protectmypublicmedia.org, contact your lawmakers, and take a stand today.
Hello, my name is Eddie Vargas. Today I'm making birria, traditional birria from Jalisco. Takes me back to my teenage years, back when I lived in LA. My father used to make this birria recipe for a lot of family parties and events and stuff like that. So it just takes me back to when I was a child.
This is The Dish, a series where you get to meet some of Michigan's most talented chefs through one signature plate. I'm Mercedes Mejia. Every chef has that one dish that tells you something important about who they are. For Chef Eddie, it's an obvious choice.
Every time I eat birria, obviously it reminds me of my father, So every time I make it, I'm like trying to perfect it even better than his. So, those flavors transport me back to those moments, those special moments.
Today, we're cooking with Chef Eddie Vargas, a food consultant, mixologist, birria enthusiast, and born in tequila country. He'll dish about his family's birria recipe, growing up in LA, then moving to Detroit, and keeping his family traditions alive, while adding his own flair. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Can you kind of describe what's happening over here on this side?
Basically, these are tacos de camarón dorados, and they'll be topped off with a jicama red cabbage slaw with chipotle and crema.
That sounds delicious.
They're delicious. They're very good.
It's like an empanada / taquito.
Yes, it's basically like a folded tortilla, kind of empanada style, deep fried. A little bit a take on a different, shrimp taco, but they're very delicious.
Eddie is the operational manager for El Parian Hospitality. It's a restaurant group that manages a couple of properties across Detroit. In addition to that, he runs a catering business called Itzquil Detroit with his business partner, Nancy Diaz, and he hosts pop-ups around the city.
When I look at a menu, I like to kind of add new ingredients. So I try to use traditional recipes. So, just kind of like remembering how my grandmother used to make, kind of looking at her and how she used to make things, and my mother, and just kind of looking at the recipes and remembering that, using those methods and using those recipes, and maybe adding a few new ingredients like arugula into some things instead of using lettuce or a bitter green, and just kind of elevating the plate and all that. It excites me because now there's so much you can do with, for example, masa. Yesterday I did some masa potato gnocchis. So they were, like pretty much the cornmeal masa, kind of like the little potatoes. I added guajillo chiles to them, give a color. I used a cream sauce with huitlacoche and birria on it, so that was pretty good. Wow. I also like to experiment a lot with sauces, so like matcha sauce and, different styles of salsas that I can make.
On Chef Eddie's menu, you might find traditional Mexican dishes like elote. Then he's got his crunchy potato flautas served on top of this beautiful green tomatillo jalapeno salsa. Pair that with his saffron horchata, and for the adventurous types, chapulines, or grasshoppers. But Eddie might be best known for his birria. That's birria. It's this rich, full-flavor stew, slow-cooked until your meat of choice is fall-apart delicious and juicy. Traditionally made with large cuts of meat like goat or lamb, in the U.S. it's mostly made with beef. Lots of dried chilies, garlic, spices, and a couple of secret ingredients.
This is my father's recipe. A lot of people put different ingredients. So someone might put chocolate. For this case, my dad's secret ingredient is like ginger and pineapple skins, which I'm revealing it to you now. So it's originally from Jalisco. Birria is slowly roasted for about 5 hours, cooked in pot with the consommé. So it's the broth and all of the ingredients release into that broth and make it, nice, hearty, and delicious. I've come from a family of food. My grandparents love to cook and everything, so my father as well. And growing up, he made birria for, like I said, parties and quinceañeras and, family events, or friends that would ask him to make, birria. Maybe back 2018, 17, I just randomly asked him, can you teach me how to make birria? And he said, no, because you're going to give out the recipe. And I said, well, I'm sure people know their different recipe, and so then I asked my mother, and she gave me part of it until I kind of persuaded him and convinced him to give me the rest.
And so your grandparents were taqueros back in Jalisco, right?
Yes. So my father's parents were taqueros, Juanita and Antonio Vargas. They had a little taco stand in San Ignacio, Jalisco. So they cooked. They were very popular in town. Everyone loved their tacos. It just takes me back to when my grandmother was still alive, and they would cook tacos for us in our garage. And here in Southwest Detroit, my father built a taco stand out of aluminum table, and kind of just for us to make for our parties. And so it just brings me back to those moments when she was alive and would cook those tacos. That the flavor just instantly transports me back to those times.
So what brought your family to Detroit?
My parents migrated to the U.S. when I was 4 years old. We lived in, Inglewood, the Wood in L.A. So we lived there for a few years, and then we had the opportunity to move to Venice Beach, which was beautiful because we used to walk to the beach and, get a slice of pizza and just experience that. But it was just the cost of living was so high. My father, struggled, and, he decided to visit one of his sisters that lived in Detroit for a week or two, came to Detroit, and went back to LA and said, we're moving to Detroit. And here we are.
The vast majority of Latinos in the city live in Southwest Detroit, locally known as Mexican Town. The influx of Latinos to Detroit happened in large part around the 1920s, and the population remains strong with multi-generational families and new immigrants.
I love Mexico's my heart. My spirit is Detroit, but I have a special place in my heart for me and in my soul from LA. So I love all three places.
So tell us about becoming a chef. Where did you go to learn what you needed?
So I'm more hands-on. I've been in this industry for about over 20 years. Like I said, food runs in my blood, and I've always cooked. And kind of never been, back of the house, been more front of the house management. But a few years ago and before the pandemic, I got more into cooking. So kind of the pandemic gave me the opportunity to kind of open up and explore more of what I like to do. Mm-hmm. And so, during the pandemic, I had a whole schedule in my house, in my parents' house, like, we're cooking this today, Monday we're doing this, Tuesday we're doing that. So it just motivated me to do more and to start cooking and getting, into it more.
More to come after the break.
Hi, I'm Wendy Turner, Executive Director of Michigan Public. You might have heard that public media is under threat. You're not wrong. But I come to tell you that your voice has power. Visit protectmypublicmedia.org, contact your lawmakers, and take a stand today.
Now that we've heard about Eddie's background in the culinary industry, we're going to hear how he creates his signature dish, birria with guajillo braised beef stew.
Just get it to warm up a little bit, and then the tortilla can sear really well.
Well, tell us about the ingredients. What do we have here?
So in my recipe, these are the ingredients. So I put some bay leaves. There is a little bit of cinnamon. There's fresh tomatoes, cilantro, and I use the stem as well. That has a lot of the cilantro taste to it. So on the peppers, we have dehydrated guajillos and dehydrated anchos. So guajillos and anchos release really good color and flavor. So these peppers they're typically not that spicy at all. They're dehydrated, so when you rehydrate them, they release a lot of nice smoky flavors, but they're really not spicy. I like to use the seeds as well. So when you blend everything together, it gives it like that extra, maybe a small kick to it, not too much. On the spices, I use a little bit of the Mexican oregano, black pepper, salt. Again, one of the special ingredients that I use is a little piece of fresh ginger and the pineapple peels from the pineapple. So those kind of release the enzymes and make the meat a little bit softer and give the broth a different taste. Also, fresh onion, garlic, and orange. I like to use beef, just because everyone likes beef better. I use chuck roll. So you can use a blend of chuck roll. I sometimes make birria with shank. So nice shank simmered, get that bone marrow and get the shank to be nice and tender. Short rib as well you can use, but for this recipe I'm using chuck roll.
Within the last couple of years, this humble food has taken off in the culinary world. Thanks to social media, you can now see and hear just how mouth-watering birria is.
A couple of people started to do the tacos with, the dipping sauce, the birria and the consomme and all that stuff. So I think that had part, blowing it up. But I've been making birria since way before that. Birria just exploded, and I think TikTok was, the cause of that.
Okay, as promised, I have some birria tacos.
Look at this. Good God. With the consomme and the onions and cilantro. I feel like I'm late to a party, but I'm so glad I'm there.
So I'm trying birria tacos for the first time today. I've been wanting to try these for so long, and
Damn. That's good.
wait, where's the consomme? Oh my days, this is not even the full experience. I don't have the dip thingy. Like, bro?
Okay, Eddie, so what's the difference between good birria and bad birria?
I've had good birria and bad birria, and not to say that my birria is the best. Obviously, the meat is the star of the dish, but the consomme follows with that. So I think there needs to be a perfect balance between both of them. Birria has to have perfect color, a perfect consomme with seasoning, and also the texture of the meat.
And how do you traditionally eat it? Like, how do you like to eat?
I like to eat it with the consomme. So I grab a bowl, put chunks of birria in it, top it off with cilantro, onions, maybe a little bit of radish on the side, and then some rice. And growing up, that's how I ate it with a spoon. Just grab the spoon, grab the tortilla, kind of rolled it, dip the tortilla in, took a bite of the meat, took a bite of the tortilla, or added meat to the tortilla, and it's the best thing. I also, now I add, I make my own salsa macha, which is like a Mexican chili oil sauce, which I add on top of that. It just enhances it, gives it a nicer, smokier taste to it.
Yeah, that sounds so delicious. And maybe just a tip for anyone listening too, if they're doing birria tacos with like the broth on the side and they're dipping it, drink the broth. Like, don't throw it away.
Don't.
Because I've seen that before. I've seen people do that. It's like, no, that's like the most delicious part.
The broth is by far part of, the birria experience. So it's also good for hangovers. So add a little bit of spice and lemon and all that stuff. Delicious.
Typical hangover food.
You'll be back alive.
What do you like to drink with your birria?
Honestly, a Coca-Cola, a Mexican Coke. I'm not gonna lie, but also a nice Paloma. I have a drink called the Eddie, tequila with soda water and a splash of jarrito, toronja, grapefruit, fresca, whatever, squirt, whatever you want to put. So it's like a skinnier Paloma, not too sweet, but a very traditional Paloma with salt on the rim and lime and tequila. I think that would really go well with too.
Really refreshing with the richness of the birria.
Yes, I think it gives it a perfect balance. And then if you have too many Eddies, then the next day you can have extra consomme and fix yourself up.
That's right. And start all over again.
Yeah.
What does your dad think of your birria?
So I think I can remember maybe a year ago, or invited him and my parents, and my siblings over to my house, and I cooked birria, and he sat down and so I served him a plate, and surprisingly he did like it. He's like, it's almost as good as mine, and I said, yeah, I think mine's is better than yours now. So we kind of always compete and fight over whose birria is better. It's okay.
Yeah, he won't admit that
He won't
yours
never know.
is
He's the master of the birria in our family, so.
And this is the moment I've been waiting for. Eddie is making a quesabirria. That's a quesadilla with birria meat inside, seared to perfection and plated along with a bowl of piping hot meat and that velvety red broth.
So here we have a quesabirria. Typically, it's a large format tortilla, flour tortilla. It's pan-seared with the oil or the sauce of the birria, and has a little bit of shredded birria inside of it with cilantro, onions, queso. I use queso Chihuahua, so like nice Mexican like quesadilla blend cheese, and then served with consomme on the side with onion, cilantro, salsa macha. And then this is birria, so it's a birria plate. It's typically served with the consomme, so nice chunks of meat that are tender, topped with onion, cilantro, and lime.
Oh my. Wow. I love the bite of like the onions and the freshness of the cilantro
Yes.
with the meat.
Maybe the salsa macha has a little bit of heat to it.
Just a little bit, but
Yeah,
not
but I think
not too
once
much.
you mix all the consomme and the flavor.
It is so flavorful.
Thank you.
It's delicious.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. I'm Eddie Vargas, and that's the dish.
A quick update before we let you go. Eddie told me he's getting ready to open a new taqueria called Tacos Wuey Detroit with his father, Jose. Güey in Mexican Spanish is a word that means like friend, homie. The new restaurant is launching sometime in 2025. And he's also parting ways with El Parian. Eddie, we wish you all the best. If you have an idea for a chef we should feature or feedback on the show, let us know. Email us at thedish@michiganpublic.org. Today's episode was produced and mixed by me, your host, Mercedes Mejia. It was edited by Ronia Cabansag and Laura Weber Davis. Music for the show comes from Blue Dot Sessions and Audio Network. Thank you so much for listening. Talk to you next time.